The auditorium of Lincoln High School buzzed with restless energy, a sea of navy blue uniforms and excited chatter filling the air. The Spring Arts Festival host election was moments away, and I, Jennifer Jenny Carter, stood frozen on the stage, my heart hammering against my ribcage. It took me 3 agonizing minutes to grasp the impossible truth I had been reborn, flung 6 years back in the spring of my junior year. I was 17 again, my hair still in the messy ponytail I'd worn that day, my palms sweaty as I gripped the podium's edge. The realization hit like a tidal wave. Every mistake, every heartbreak, every choice I'd made in my past life could be undone. This was my chance to rewrite my story, to escape the shadows that had haunted me. The student council president, Matt Reynolds, a wiry senior, bellowed my name from below the stage. Jenny Carter. Stop spacing out and get to your mark. His voice snapped me back to the present, and I blinked the fluorescent lights above, casting harsh glares on the polished wooden floor. The auditorium smelled of dusty curtains and teenage anticipation, a scent that yanked me back to that pivotal day. In my past life, this election had been the spark of my unraveling, a moment that set me on a path of obsession, betrayal, and loss. But now standing here, I felt a fire ignite within me. I wasn't the same lovesick girl anymore. I had knowledge, pain, and a burning resolve to change my fate. 6 years ago, or rather 6 years from now, I'd been a naive junior head over heels for Luke Thompson, the golden boy of Lincoln High. With his tousled blonde hair, piercing green eyes, and a smile that could charm a snake, Luke was the undisputed king of our small-town Virginia school. He'd already been chosen as the male host for the festival, and his name met with cheers when announced. On the other hand, I was just Jenny, decent grades, decent looks, and a heart foolishly tethered to a boy who never truly saw me. In my past life, I'd competed against Emily Davis, Luke's childhood sweetheart, and the school's darling for the female host role. That competition had been the beginning of my downfall, a spiral that ended in a marriage marked by coercion and heartbreak. But this time I swore things would be different. The crowd's murmurs grew louder as Matt waved for me to step forward. My eyes scanned the auditorium, landing on Luke, lounging in the front row with that effortless confidence. He whispered to Emily, her auburn hair catching the light as she laughed. My stomach twisted, not with longing, but with the weight of memory. In my past life, I'd have given anything for Luke to look at me like that. Now I saw him for what he was, a boy whose love came with strings, whose loyalty lay elsewhere. I straightened my shoulders, my sneakers squeaking against the stage. This wasn't just a second chance, it was a lifeline. I wouldn't waste it chasing a ghost. As I adjusted the microphone, I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflection of a nearby trophy case. My brown eyes were wide, my freckled cheeks flushed, but there was a new hardness in my gaze, a determination forged from years of regret. I thought of my parents' high school teachers who'd moved overseas for a better-paying gig at an international school. In my past life, Luke had used their jobs to manipulate me, threatening their stability to force me into decisions I'd never forgive myself for. I'd called them last night, their voices crackling over a spotty video call from halfway across the globe. "Jenny, you sound different," Mom had said, her brow furrowing. "Stronger." I'd promised to make them proud, to build a life where no one could hold power over me again. That promise pulsed through me now, steadying my hands. The election rules were simple. Each candidate gave a speech, and the student body voted. Emily was my only competition, her poised smile radiating confidence as she waited off stage. In my past life, I'd poured my heart into my speech, desperate to impress Luke. It hadn't mattered. A freak accident, a falling light fixture, had interrupted the event, and my victory had come at a cost I didn't yet understand. This time, I wouldn't let fate dictate my path. I'd make my own choices, starting with stepping away from Luke and his world of drama. As I prepared to speak, I noticed a group of freshmen in the back filming the event on their phones. One of them, a girl with pink streaks in her hair, grinned and whispered to her friend, pointing at me. It reminded me of the YouTube channel I'd stumbled across in my past life, Lincoln High Chronicles, where students posted recaps of school events. If this moment was being recorded, I wanted it to count, not just for me, but for anyone watching who might be stuck in their own cycle of mistakes. I leaned into the mic, my voice steady despite the butterflies in my stomach. Before I start, I want to say, if you're watching this on Lincoln High Chronicles, hit that like button, comment about your favorite festival moment, and subscribe to keep up with our school's story. Trust me, this year's going to be one to remember. The crowd chuckled, and Matt shot me a bemused look, but I didn't care. It felt right, a slight nod to the future I was building, one where I controlled the narrative. As I began my speech, I kept it short, focusing on the festival's spirit rather than Luke's approval. My eyes drifted to the back of the auditorium where a quiet figure caught my attention. Samuel Sam Parker, a scholarship student with sharp gray eyes and a reputation for acing every test. In my past life, I'd barely noticed him. But I remembered the headlines from 6 years later: Sam, a tech mogul who'd built an empire from nothing. If I were to secure my future, he might be the key, not through love, but through alliance. As the applause faded, I stepped off the stage, my mind racing with plans. This was my second chance, and I wouldn't let it slip away. The auditorium doors swung shut behind me as I slipped into the hallway, the echo of applause fading into a dull hum. My sneakers squeaked on the linoleum, and I leaned against a locker, my breath shaky. The reality of being reborn still felt like a fever dream, but the memories of my past life were razor sharp, cutting through the haze. I closed my eyes and the images flooded back, 6 years of choices that had led me to a life I despised, all tied to Luke Thompson and his hold over me. I needed to understand precisely what I was running from to change my future. In my past life, the Spring Arts Festival host election had been my moment to shine. I'd spent weeks crafting my speech, practicing in front of my bedroom mirror, imagining Luke's green eyes lighting up with pride. Emily Davis, his childhood sweetheart, was my rival, a girl with auburn hair and a smile that could melt hearts. She was Lincoln High's golden girl, kind to everyone, but I saw her as the obstacle between me and Luke. During the final round of speeches, as I poured my heart out, a light fixture above Emily's head snapped free. It crashed to the stage glass, shattering, and the sharp edges grazed her neck, leaving thin red lines. The auditorium gasped, and Luke sprinted from the front row, scooping her into his arms and rushing her to safety. He abandoned the election, and I was named female host by default, a hollow victory. The festival itself was a disaster. Backstage, minutes before my entrance, Luke cornered me. His eyes, usually warm, were cold as steel. He said, "Everyone knows you can't stand Emily," twirling a pocket knife with a half smile that chilled me. "You had something to do with that light, didn't you?" I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes, but he didn't listen. With a flick of his wrist, he slashed the hem of my dress, a shimmering blue gown I'd saved months to buy. "Just a warning," he said. "Please stay away from her." I grabbed a spare gown from the drama club's rack, ill-fitting and stiff, and stumbled onto the stage. My performance was a mess, lines forgotten, smiles forced. The student council lectured me for 2 hours afterward, their words blurring into a hum of shame. I'd let everyone down, including myself. That moment was just the beginning. Years later, after high school, I married Luke, believing his promises of love. But his heart belonged to Emily, always had. When she fell ill, needing a kidney transplant, Luke's true colors emerged. He sat across from me in our sterile suburban home, his voice calm but unyielding. "Your parents' jobs are on the line, Jenny," he said, fingering the diamond ring I'd once cherished. "Their teacher's replaceable. One call, and they're out." His assistant, a slick man in a suit, later hinted at worse lawsuits, fabricated scandals that could ruin my family. My parents weren't wealthy. Their savings were modest enough for a quiet life, but not to fight a legal war. I had no choice. I donated the kidney, the surgery, leaving a scar on my body and a deeper one on my soul. The betrayal, Luke's willingness to break me for Emily, haunted me, a wound that never healed. I opened my eyes, the hallway's fluorescent lights snapping me back to the present. My hands trembled, but I clenched them into fists. That life was gone. I wasn't the same Jenny who'd begged for Luke's approval. I thought of my parents, who are now teaching in Singapore, and their faces were bright on last night's video call. "You've always been our fighter," Dad had said, his voice warm with pride. I'd told them I wanted to build a future where no one could control me, and they'd promised to support me even from afar. Their love was my anchor, a reminder that I had something worth protecting. Back in the auditorium, the election continued. Emily was giving her speech now, her voice smooth and confident. I could have stayed and fought for the host role, but what was the point? It had only ever been about Luke, and he wasn't worth it. Instead, I slipped out to the school's courtyard, the spring air cool against my skin. The bulletin board near the library caught my eye, plastered with flyers and photos. One stood out: Samuel Sam Parker listed under the scholarship recipients. His gray eyes stared out from the picture, sharp and distant, his dark hair slightly mussed. He was a nobody now, a quiet kid from a struggling family, but I knew his future. 6 years from now, he'd be on the cover of Forbes, a tech prodigy who'd turned a startup into a billion-dollar empire. Sam was my ticket if I wanted financial independence, not through romance but through connection. I'd befriend him, earn his trust, and maybe, just maybe, he'd take me along for the ride. As I stood there plotting my next move, a group of students passed by, their voices loud with festival gossip. "Jenny's probably sulking because Luke's with Emily," one said, laughing. I rolled my eyes. Let them think what they wanted. I wasn't that girl anymore. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. "You've got this, Jenny. Make your own path." I smiled, tucking the phone away. This time I'd choose my allies, carefully starting with Sam Parker. The festival was just the beginning, and I was ready to rewrite my story, one bold step at a time. The auditorium of Lincoln High School vibrated with the hum of anticipation, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and teenage excitement. I stood frozen on the stage, my heart still reeling from realizing that I'd been reborn 6 years ago. The Spring Arts Festival host election was in full swing, and I, Jennifer Jenny Carter, was moments away from giving my speech. But my eyes weren't on the crowd, or Luke Thompson, the golden boy, already chosen as the male host. They were locked on the ceiling, where a heavy light fixture hung precariously above Emily Davis, his childhood sweetheart, and my rival for the female host role. In my past life, that fixture had fallen, cutting her neck and setting off a chain of events that ruined me. Not this time. The student council president, Matt Reynolds, barked my name again. "Jenny, move it." His voice jolted me, and I saw the fixture wobble, a faint creak echoing in my ears. My body acted before my mind could catch up. I lunged across the stage, shoving Emily out of the way just as the light crashed down, glass exploding in sparks. The crowd gasped, screams rippling through the auditorium. I stumbled, my knee slamming into the floor, pain shooting through me as blood seeped through my jeans. Before I could catch my breath, a firm hand yanked me backward, throwing me to the ground. Luke towered over me, his green eyes blazing with fury. "Touch her again and you're done," he hissed, cradling Emily protectively. My knee throbbed, but his words cut deeper, echoing the accusations from my past life. I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to scream. A timid voice broke the silence, a freshman in the front row. "Wait, I think Jenny pushed Emily to save her." Luke's gaze flickered, a shadow of doubt crossing his face, but I didn't care. I was done with his world, done with chasing his approval. I pushed myself up, wincing as my knee protested, and turned to Matt. "I'm out of the election," I said, my voice steady despite the pain. "I need to treat this injury. I won't be giving my speech." The auditorium fell silent, mouths agape. Even Emily, brushing glass from her skirt, looked stunned. "Jenny, are you sure?" Matt asked, his brows furrowing. I nodded, limping toward the exit. Whispers erupted behind me, sharp and biting. "She's just mad about Luke and Emily," one girl muttered. "Always chasing him, and now she's throwing a fit." Another added, "I bet she'll be back to following him by lunch." I let the words slide off me, my focus narrowing to the hallway ahead. In my past life, I'd have cared what they thought. Now I knew better. I had to protect myself, starting with walking away from the stage and everything it represented. In the nurse's office, I sat on a crinkly paper sheet, cleaning the scrape on my knee with antiseptic. The sting grounded me, a reminder that this life was real, that I could choose differently. My phone buzzed, a text from my mom, halfway across the world in Singapore. "Heard about the festival from a colleague's kid. You okay?" I smiled, typing back, "Just a scratch." Decided to skip the drama this time. Her reply came fast. "Proud of you, Jenny. You're stronger than you know." Their support, even from thousands of miles away, warmed me. In my past life, Luke had used their jobs to manipulate me, threatening their stability as teachers. Now they were safe overseas, and I was determined to build a life where no one could hold that kind of power over me again. As I bandaged my knee, I replayed the moment I'd saved Emily. Part of me had acted on instinct, but another part, a quieter, more conflicted one, wondered if I'd done it to prove something. To Luke. To myself, I shook my head, pushing the thought away. Saving her was right, but it didn't mean I owed her anything. Emily had always been kind, but in my past life, her presence had loomed over my every choice, a constant reminder of Luke's devotion to her. This time, I wouldn't let her or him define me. I stood testing my weight on my knee and made a silent vow, no more chasing shadows. My future would be mine, built on my terms. Outside, the courtyard was quiet, the spring sun filtering through budding trees. I paused by the bulletin board, where a photo of Sam Parker caught my eye under the scholarship section. His gray eyes were sharp, his expression guarded, but I knew what he'd become, a tech mogul who'd reshape the industry. I'd barely noticed him in my past life, just another quiet kid in a sea of louder voices. Now he was a beacon, a chance to secure the financial independence I craved. I didn't need his love, I just needed a connection and a way to ride his future success. As I headed to class, the whispers from the auditorium faded, replaced by a single clear thought. This was my chance to break free, and I wouldn't let anyone, not Luke, not Emily, not even my own doubts, stand in my way. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, but I lingered in the Lincoln High courtyard, the spring breeze carrying the scent of blooming dogwoods. My knee still ached from the auditorium incident, and the bandage stiffened against my jeans, but the pain was a small price to pay for my freedom. I'd walked away from the Spring Arts Festival host election, from Luke Thompson's orbit, and from the girl I used to be. The whispers of my classmates calling me jealous, lovesick faded into background noise. They didn't know the truth, didn't know the weight of the memories I carried from my past life. But I did. And those memories were why I was here staring at a bulletin board photo of Samuel Sam Parker plotting a future where no one could control me again. In my past life, Luke's betrayal had cut deeper than any knife. After the festival, his accusations and threats had only grown worse, culminating in a marriage that felt more like a cage. When Emily Davis fell ill, needing a kidney transplant, Luke had sat across from me in our pristine Virginia home, his voice cold as he twisted the diamond ring on my finger. "Your parents' jobs are at stake, Jenny," he'd said. "Teachers are easy to replace." His assistant, a man with a shark smile, had hinted at darker consequences, lawsuits, fabricated scandals that could bankrupt my family. My parents' high school teachers had modest savings, enough for a quiet life, but not to fight Luke's wealth and influence. I'd had no choice but to donate the kidney, the surgery, leaving a scar that throbbed with every memory of his control. That trauma still lingered, a shadow that followed me even in this new life. I pulled out my phone and reread Mom's text from earlier. "I'm proud of you, Jenny. You're stronger than you know." I'd called them last night, their faces pixelated but warm over a video call from Singapore, where they now taught at an international school. "We're doing fine here," Dad had said, his glasses slipping down his nose. "Focus on you, kiddo. Build something unbreakable." Their words were a lifeline, a reminder that they were safe beyond Luke's reach. But I knew safety wasn't enough. I needed financial power to ensure no one could ever threaten me or them again. That meant money, and lots of it, no more scraping by no more vulnerability. I'd make sure my future was bulletproof. The bulletin board photo of Sam Parker drew my eye again. His gray eyes were sharp, almost cold, his dark hair falling slightly over his forehead. He was a scholarship student, quiet and overlooked, but I knew what he'd become. 6 years from now, he'd be on Forbes, a tech prodigy who'd turned a garage startup into a billion-dollar empire. I'd barely registered him in my past life, too caught up in Luke's drama. Now he was my best shot at the future I wanted. Not through romance, my heart was too bruised for that, but through alliance. If I could earn his trust, maybe he'd take me along when he soared. I wasn't naive enough to think it'd be easy. Sam was guarded, his sharp mind always watching, but I had 6 years of knowledge and a second chance to make it work. I headed to class, my mind buzzing with plans. In the hallway, a group of girls whispered as I passed, their eyes darting to me. "She's probably plotting to win Luke back," one said, smirking. I ignored them, but their words stung, a reminder of the old Jenny, desperate, clinging to a boy who never cared. That girl was gone, but I couldn't help wondering if I was trading one obsession for another. Was I latching onto Sam for the right reasons, or was I just scared of being powerless again? I shook off the doubt, focusing on the present. I had to start somewhere, and Sam was the logical choice. In physics class, I spotted Sam in the back, his head bent over a notebook, scribbling equations with a precision that bordered on art. I slid into the seat beside him, ignoring the curious glances from our classmates. "Hey, Sam," I said, keeping my tone light. "You're a genius at this stuff." He glanced up, his gray eyes narrowing slightly like he was sizing me up. "What do you want, Jenny?" His voice was calm but not unkind. I smiled, unfazed. "Just a friend who's good at physics. I can bring you coffee sometime as a trade." He raised an eyebrow, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "Coffee's not cheap." "You sure?" I nodded, sensing a crack in his armor. It was a start. Later in the library, I overheard Sam talking to a teacher about a coding project, a prototype app he was building for extra credit. His voice was quiet but confident, outlining features that sounded years ahead of our time. I made a mental note: this was the Sam who'd conquer Silicon Valley. If I could show him I was worth trusting, maybe I'd be part of that future. As I left school, my phone buzzed again, a photo from Mom, her and Dad smiling in front of a Singapore skyline. "Keep fighting, Jenny," she wrote. I clutched the phone, my resolve hardening. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about building a life where no one, not Luke, not anyone could ever hold me down again. The cafeteria at Lincoln High School was a cacophony of clattering trays and laughter, the air thick with the smell of pizza and fries. It was Friday evening, and our junior class had gathered for a pizza night at Tony's Pizzeria, a local spot decked out in red checkered tablecloths and neon signs. Jennifer Jenny Carter, sat at a corner table, my bandaged knee still sore from the auditorium incident a week ago. My rebirth into this 17-year-old life had shifted my focus from chasing Luke Thompson to securing my future, and tonight I was taking my first real step toward that goal. Across the room, Samuel Sam Parker sat alone, his gray eyes fixed on a notebook, oblivious to the chaos around him. He was my target not for love, but for an alliance that could lead me to the financial independence I craved. I slid into the seat next to Sam, ignoring the curious glances from our classmates. Luke and his clique of rich kids jocks and trust fund brats lounged at a nearby table, their laughter loud and performative. Luke's green eyes flicked toward me, but I focused on Sam, offering a casual smile. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, setting my soda down. He glanced up, his expression guarded but not hostile. "Free country," he said, his voice low, returning to his notebook. I peeked at the page lines of code, neat and complex for an app he was building. It was a glimpse of the tech mogul he'd become, and it fueled my determination to get close to him. The mood shifted when one of Luke's friends, a smug senior named Tyler, spun the lazy Susan on our table with a smirk. A platter of spicy buffalo wings stopped right in front of Sam. "Eat up, man," Tyler said, his tone dripping with mockery. "Tony's giving us a discount, but I bet this is still more than you're used to." The table went quiet, everyone knowing Sam's scholarship status and his sensitive stomach, which had landed him in the hospital twice. My blood boiled. I'd have stayed silent in my past life, too scared to rock the boat. Not anymore. I reached out, spun the lazy Susan back, and slid a bowl of tomato soup before Sam. "Thanks for the discount, Tyler," I said sweetly, my voice loud enough to carry. "This soup's perfect for sharing." The tension broke as a few kids chuckled and Tyler's face reddened, whatever he muttered, turning away. Sam's eyes met mine, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "Smooth," he said, dipping his spoon into the soup. It was a small victory, but felt like a crack in his armor. I kept the conversation light as we ate, asking about his coding project. "It's just an app for tracking study habits," he said, shrugging. "Helps me stay organized." I nodded, impressed by the ambition hidden in his casual tone. This was the Sam who'd build an empire, and I wanted to be part of it, not as a leech, but as someone who earned his trust. Later, as the night wound down, I walked to the counter to grab a to-go box, my mind racing. My plan to befriend Sam was strategic, but I couldn't ignore the flicker of guilt in my chest. Was I using him just like Luke had used me? I thought of my parents now teaching in Singapore, their voices echoing from last night's call. "You're smart, Jenny," Mom had said. "Trust your instincts, but don't lose your heart." I wanted to believe I could build something real with Sam, not just a calculated alliance. Back at the table, I took a chance. "Hey, Sam," I said, sliding back into my seat. "I'm awful at physics. If I bring you coffee every morning, will you tutor me?" He raised an eyebrow, his gray eyes studying me. "What's your angle, Jenny?" he asked, his voice calm but curious. I laughed, keeping it light and just passing physics. "Deal." He hesitated, then nodded, a faint smile breaking through. "Deal." As we left Tony's, I caught Luke watching me from across the room, his expression unreadable. I ignored him, but the weight of his gaze lingered. Back home, I texted my parents, updating them on my day. "Made a new friend. He's smart, and he might help me get ahead." Dad replied, "Good for you, kiddo. Pick people who lift you." Their words steadied me, but as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the question, was I building trust with Sam, or just another trap for myself? Only time would tell, but I'd keep moving forward, one careful step at a time. The spring dusk settled over our small Virginia town, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple as I walked home from Lincoln High. The streets were quiet, lined with blooming dogwoods, and the occasional hum of a passing car. My knee, still bandaged from the auditorium incident, ached with each step, but it was nothing compared to the weight of my past life's memories. Jennifer Jenny Carter had been reborn with a chance to rewrite my story, and I was determined to stay far from Luke Thompson, the boy who'd once broken me. But as I turned onto Maple Street, a black SUV slowed beside me, its tinted window rolling down to reveal Luke and Emily Davis inside. "Jenny, need a ride?" Emily asked, her auburn hair catching the fading light, her smile warm but tinged with pity. I shook my head, keeping my voice polite. "Thanks, my house is just up the block." Luke leaned forward, his green eyes glinting with something sharp. "Not even your boyfriend Sam walks you home," he said, his tone mocking. "Some guy he is." My heart raced, not from longing but from anger. The rumor that I was chasing Sam Parker, the scholarship kid I'd befriended, was spreading, and Luke's words twisted it into something ugly. I stepped closer to the car, my voice cold. "Sam's not my boyfriend. I can't stand how you and your friends treat him." "Not everyone's born with a silver spoon, Luke." His eyes narrowed and he stepped out of the SUV, slamming the door. The streetlight cast shadows across his face, making him look familiar and foreign. "You were smiling at him all night at Tony's," he said, his voice low, almost accusing. "I saw it, Jenny. You don't smile like that for just anyone." His jealousy caught me off guard, and for a moment I was back in my past life, trapped in our marriage, his voice soft but threatening as he coerced me into donating a kidney to Emily. Fear surged, a visceral memory of his control, and I backed away, my breath hitching. "Stay away from me," I said, my voice trembling. He took a step closer, his expression softening, confused. "Jenny, it's me. What's wrong?" I turned and ran, my sneakers pounding the pavement, my heart hammering. I didn't stop until I reached my front porch, the familiar creak of the swing grounding me. I sank onto it, my hands shaking as I pulled out my phone. "A text from Mom, waited long day here, but thinking of you." "Everything okay?" I typed back. "Just dealing with some ghosts. I'll be fine." Her reply was instant. "You're tougher than any ghost, Jenny. Call if you need us." Even from Singapore, their support was a lifeline, but the encounter with Luke had rattled me. I'd thought I could leave him behind, but his presence was like a shadow I couldn't shake. The next day at school, I kept my distance from Luke, focusing on Sam. In physics class, I slid him a coffee as promised, earning a raised eyebrow and a quiet thanks. We worked through a problem set together, and his explanations were clear and patient. I noticed the confident and precise way his fingers moved over the equations, a hint of the tech genius he'd become. But as we talked, I wondered if my kindness was genuine or part of my plan. Was I better than Luke, using people to get what I wanted? The thought gnawed at me, but I pushed it aside. Sam was different. He didn't demand anything from me, didn't hold power over me. Still, I kept my guard up, careful not to seem too eager. By Friday, rumors about Sam and me were everywhere. In the cafeteria, a group of girls whispered, "She's over Luke and onto the scholarship kid now." I ignored them, but Luke's presence lingered, his gaze heavy whenever we passed in the halls. The same black SUV pulled up again as I walked home that evening. Luke stepped out alone this time, his hands in his pockets. "Jenny, we need to talk," he said, his voice softer but insistent. I stopped, my heart pounding, but I stood my ground. "There's nothing to say, Luke. I don't like you anymore. I don't want anything to do with you." He flinched, his eyes darkening. "You don't mean that," he said, stepping closer. I backed away, my voice firm. "I do. Please leave me alone." For a moment he looked lost, like the boy I'd once loved, but then his jaw tightened and he turned away, leaving a plastic bag on a nearby mailbox. "For your knee," he muttered before driving off. I peeked inside, antiseptic cream and bandages. I tossed it in the trash, my hands trembling. His kindness felt like a trap, a reminder of the manipulation I'd endured. As I walked home, I vowed to keep my focus on Sam, on building a future where no one, not Luke, not anyone, could hurt me again. The halls of Lincoln High School buzzed with the energy of spring, the walls plastered with posters for the upcoming Spring Arts Festival. Jenny Carter, navigated the crowded corridors, a thermos of homemade chicken noodle soup tucked under my arm. My rebirth into this 17-year-old life had shifted my focus from chasing Luke Thompson to forging a connection with Sam Parker, the scholarship student destined to become a tech mogul. But as I headed toward our physics class, my motives were starting to blur. What had begun as a calculated plan to secure my financial future was turning into something else, something that made my heart race when Sam's gray eyes met mine. Over the past weeks, I'd thrown myself into supporting Sam. I brought him coffee every morning, clapped loudest when our teacher praised his perfect test scores, and even showed up at the local coffee shop where he worked part-time, pretending to study while stealing glances at him. At first, it was all strategy, earn his trust, hitch a ride to his future success. But now, as I handed him the thermos in class saying, "Made this for your stomach, Sam. It's good for you," I caught myself smiling too genuinely. His skeptical look softened and he took the thermos murmuring, "You don't have to do this, Jenny." I shrugged, my cheeks warm. "I want to." The words slipped out before I could stop them, and I wondered when I'd started meaning them. That afternoon, I sat in the school library, my physics textbook open, but ignored. My phone buzzed a video call from my parents in Singapore. Mom's face appeared, her glasses fogging slightly from the humidity. "You look distracted, Jenny," she said, her tone gentle. I sighed, admitting that I'm trying to make a friend, but unsure if I'm doing it for the right reasons. Dad leaned into the frame, his smile warm. "Trust your heart, kiddo. If it's real, you'll know." Their words lingered as I hung up, stirring a question I couldn't shake. Was I drawn to Sam because of his future or who he was now? His quiet strength, his sharp mind, the way he hid his struggles behind a calm facade. It all felt like a puzzle I wanted to solve. My chance to test those feelings came during gym class under the bright April sun. The class was scattered across the field, some playing soccer, others lounging in the pavilion. I spotted Sam sitting alone, his shoulders hunched, one hand pressed to his stomach. His face was pale, lips tight with pain. I'd heard about his gastritis flare-ups, bad enough to send him to the hospital. Without thinking, I ran over, crouching in front of him. "Sam, what's wrong?" "Your stomach again." He gave a faint nod, his breath shallow. "I'll go to the nurse," he mumbled, trying to stand but wincing. I grabbed his arm, slinging it over my shoulder. "I'm taking you. No arguments." He protested weakly. "You don't need to, Jenny. I'm fine." But his legs trembled, and I tightened my grip. "Stop being stubborn," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "You're not fine." As we shuffled toward the nurse's office, I felt his weight lean into me, his head dipping close to my shoulder. My heart thudded, not just from the effort, but from the sudden closeness. In the nurse's office, I helped him onto a cot, ignoring the curious stares of other students. The nurse was busy with another kid, Luke, whose wrist was wrapped from a basketball injury. His green eyes flicked toward us, cold and unreadable, but he said nothing. I sat beside Sam, pouring him a cup of water. "Drink this," I said softly. He took it, his fingers brushing mine, and for a moment his guarded expression cracked, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. "Thanks, Jenny," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my throat tight. As the nurse bustled over, I stepped back, my mind racing. This wasn't just about my plan anymore. I cared about Sam more than I'd expected. Back home, I texted my parents. "Helping a friend today felt right. I may be figuring this out." Mom replied, "That's my girl. Follow what feels true." Their faith in me was an anchor, but as I lay in bed, I couldn't ignore the truth. My feelings for Sam were growing, and they scared me as much as they thrilled me. The April air in our small Virginia town was thick with the scent of rain, the sky gray, as I hurried across Lincoln High's parking lot after school. My rebirth gave me a chance to rewrite my life, escape the shadow of Luke Thompson, and build a future with Samuel Sam Parker. But Luke's persistence was a storm I couldn't outrun. His jealous confrontations, first at the pizza night, then on my walk home, had stirred memories of my past life, where his love had come with chains. I'd vowed to stay away, but as I reached the edge of the lot, a familiar black SUV blocked my path. Luke stepped out, his green eyes intense under the darkening clouds. "Jenny, we need to talk," he said, his voice low but urgent. I froze, my heart pounding. "I've got nothing to say, Luke," I replied, stepping back. He moved closer, his hands raised as if to calm me. "Please listen." Something in his tone, raw, almost desperate, stopped me. He took a breath, his gaze locking onto mine. "I'm reborn too, Jenny. I woke up 6 years ago after the accident." My breath caught the world tilting. The accident, he meant the street race that had left him paralyzed in my past life, a tragedy I'd only heard about after we'd parted ways. "I was in a hospital bed, unable to move," he continued, his voice cracking. "Then I blinked and I was back here 17 again. I thought it was a chance to fix things, to make you see I love you." His words hit like a punch. I stared at him, the boy I'd once loved, now claiming the same second chance I had. "You don't love me," I said, my voice shaking. "You never did. You forced me to give a kidney to Emily, threatened my parents, Luke, teachers with nothing but their savings, and you used them against me." His face crumpled, but he didn't back down. I owed Emily, he said. She saved my life when we were kids, pulled me out of a frozen lake. I had to help her. But it was always you, Jenny. I messed up the marriage and the fights, but I'm trying to make it right. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. You don't get it. Love doesn't hurt like that. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my wrist, his grip firm, but not cruel. Please, Jenny, he said. We got married 4 years after graduation. This time let's do it sooner, right after we graduate. We can leave Virginia, start over. The desperation in his voice was new, but it only fueled my fear. I yanked my arm free, my voice rising. Emily's not even sick yet. Take care of her, Luke. Get her checkups, keep her safe. But let me go. You'll find someone else, someone better. He stared at me, his jaw tight, but before he could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows. Sam, his gray eyes blazing. Back off, Luke, he said, stepping between us. Luke's anger flared, and he shoved Sam hard, sending him crashing into a nearby chain-link fence. The metal rattled, and Sam slumped, blood trickling from his temple. My heart stopped. Sam, I screamed, rushing to his side. He groaned, trying to stand, but I held him steady. We're going to the hospital, I said, my voice trembling. Luke stood frozen, his hands shaking. I didn't mean he started, but I cut him off. Please stay away from us. I supported Sam as we staggered to the school gate, his weight heavy against me. The ER was a blur of antiseptics and beeping monitors at the hospital. Sam sat on a gurney with a bandage on his forehead and his face pale but calm. I'm fine, Jenny, he said, but his voice was weak. I fussed over him, my hands shaking. You scared me, I admitted, my voice cracking. Don't do that again. Luke's trained in martial arts. You're no match for him. He scoffed, a faint smirk breaking through. I tripped. Okay, I could take him. I rolled my eyes, but my heart warmed at his stubborn pride. As the nurse prepared a tetanus shot, I sat beside him, my mind reeling. Luke's revelation had shaken me, but Sam's protection had anchored me. I thought of my parents, their latest text still unread on my phone. You're never alone, Jenny. We're here. I'd call them later, tell them about Sam, about the boy who'd risked himself for me. For now, I focused on Sam, his hand brushing mine as he murmured, "Thanks for staying." My feelings for him were no longer just a plan. They were real, which terrified me as much as Luke's obsession. As we left the hospital, I knew one thing for sure. I'd fight for this new life for Sam, and for the future I was building, no matter what Luke believed he could reclaim. The late April sun hung low over Lincoln High School, casting long shadows across the Virginia campus, as I, Jenny Carter, sat on a bench outside the library. My rebirth allowed me to rewrite my life, escape the toxic hold of Luke Thompson, and forge a path toward financial independence with Sam Parker. But my feelings were a tangled mess after Luke's shocking revelation that he too was reborn and the violent clash that left Sam injured. I cared for Sam more than I'd planned, which scared me. Was I falling for him or still chasing a future I could control? As I waited for Sam to finish his coding club meeting, my phone buzzed with a text from my parents in Singapore. Heard about the festival prep. You holding up? I typed back, trying to figure out my heart. Call you tonight. Even from afar, their support was a lifeline, grounding me as I navigated this new life. Sam presented his app prototype inside the library to the club, his voice steady as he explained its features, a study tracker with AI-driven reminders. I'd overheard him describing algorithms that sounded years ahead of our time, a glimpse of the tech mogul he'd become. His ambition fueled my hope that aligning with him could secure my future, but my motives shifted. Every time he smiled and let his guard down, I felt a pull that had nothing to do with strategy. I shook my head, trying to focus. I couldn't afford to let feelings cloud my judgment, not with Luke's shadow looming. That afternoon during gym class, I found Sam in the pavilion, his face pale and his hand pressed to his stomach. His gastritis was flaring again, his shoulders trembling with pain. I rushed over, crouching before him. Sam, is it bad? I asked, my voice tight with worry. He nodded faintly, lips pressed together. I'll get to the nurse, he mumbled, trying to stand but swaying. I grabbed his arm, slinging it over my shoulder. I'm taking you. No arguments, he protested weakly. You don't need to, Jenny. I don't want pity. His words stung, but I held firm. It's not pity, I said, my voice softer. It's because I care. As we shuffled to the nurse's office, his weight leaned into me, his breath warm against my neck. My heart raced, not just from the effort, but from the closeness. In the office, the nurse was tending to another student, Luke, whose wrist was still bandaged from his basketball injury. His green eyes flicked toward us, cold and unreadable, but he stayed silent. I helped Sam onto a cot, pouring him a cup of water. His fingers brushed mine as he took it, his gray eyes meeting mine with a flicker of vulnerability. "Thanks for staying, Jenny," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my throat tight. "Always." The nurse bustled over, checking Sam's vitals. "You need to take better care of yourself, Sam," she said, handing him a prescription. I sat beside him, fussing quietly. "You scared me," I admitted, my hands twisting in my lap. "Don't do that again. Luke's trained in martial arts, you can't take him in a fight." Sam scoffed, a faint smirk breaking through his pain. "I tripped on that fence, okay, I could have taken him." I rolled my eyes, but my heart warmed at his stubborn pride. "Sure, tough guy," I teased, but my voice was gentle. As we left the nurse's office, I thought of Luke's confession that he was reborn and believed he loved me. It had shaken me, but Sam's quiet strength anchored me. Back home, I called my parents, their faces lighting up my laptop screen. "I helped a friend today," I said, my voice hesitant. "Sam, he's vital to me, but I'm scared I'm getting too close." Mom smiled softly. "Love's scary, Jenny, but it's worth it if it's real. Listen to your heart." Dad added, "Make sure he's worthy of you." Their words settled over me like a warm blanket, but as I hung up, I couldn't shake the truth. My feelings for Sam were growing, and as real as they were, terrifying. I wasn't just building an alliance anymore. I was creating something more profound, and I had to be careful not to lose myself. The Spring Arts Festival at Lincoln High School transformed the campus into a kaleidoscope of color and sound, with booths lining the quad and music drifting from the auditorium. Jenny Carter, stood backstage clutching a bouquet of blue and white daisies, my heart pounding with nerves and anticipation. My rebirth gave me a chance to rewrite my life, to move beyond Luke Thompson's toxic hold, and to forge a bond with Sam Parker. Tonight, Sam was performing a piano solo, a last-minute addition pushed by our homeroom teacher. I was here to support him, not as a strategist, chasing his future success, but as someone who cared deeply in ways I was only beginning to admit. The auditorium was packed, the crowd buzzing as Sam took the stage. Under the spotlight, he was transformed, his dark hair catching the light, his gray eyes focused, as his fingers danced across the keys. The melody was haunting, a classical piece waiting through the air, silencing the room. I watched from the wings, my breath catching. I'd known Sam was talented, but this was something else, a glimpse of the quiet boy who'd one day command boardrooms. As he finished, the crowd erupted in applause, and I felt a swell of pride tinged with something warmer, something I couldn't yet name. Backstage, I waited with my flowers, my palms sweaty. Luke appeared holding a microphone for his hosting duties, his green eyes cold as he brushed past. "You're in the way, Jenny," he said, his voice clipped. I stepped aside, clutching the bouquet tighter, my heart sinking. His distance was a relief, but it stung, a reminder of the boy I'd once loved. Sam emerged moments later, his face flushed from the performance. I thrust the flowers into his hands, my voice bright. "You were terrific, Sam. Seriously." He looked at the daisies, then at me, his expression softening. He said you didn't have to, but his fingers lingered on the stems, and I saw a spark in his eyes. Before I could respond, Emily Davis approached, her auburn hair gleaming under the stage lights. "Nice performance, Sam," she said, her smile polite, but sharp. "Too bad you're always so busy with those part-time jobs. No time for anything else, huh?" Her words carried a sting, a nod to Sam's scholarship status. Luke stood nearby, engrossed in his script, seemingly oblivious. Anger flared in my chest. In my past life, Emily's health had been the excuse for Luke's coercion, and I wasn't letting her belittle Sam now. I stepped forward, my voice steady, at least Sam's healthy, Emily. "You get regular checkups, kidneys and all. You never know when you might need a transplant." Her face paled, her eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, her voice tight. I kept my smile innocent. "Just looking out for you. Health's important, money or not." She stared at me, then turned away, her shoulders stiff. Later, as I left the auditorium, Emily caught up with me, her expression softer. "I got a checkup after what you said." She admitted that her voice was low. "They found something early, a kidney issue. It's treatable." "Thanks, Jenny." I nodded, a weightlifter. "Take care of yourself," I said, meaning it. Saving her from the light fixture had been instinct, but this felt like closure, a chance to rewrite her fate too. That night, I called my parents, and their faces lit up my laptop screen from Singapore. The festival was intense, I told them, describing Sam's performance and my exchange with Emily. "I'm starting to like him, Mom, for real." She smiled, her eyes warm. "That's a good sign, Jenny. Just be honest with him and yourself," Dad added. He sounds like a keeper. Make sure he knows your worth. Their words settled over me, easing the turmoil in my heart. As I hung up, I thought of Sam, of the way his music had moved me. My plan to align with his future success was still there, but it was no longer the only thing driving me. I was falling for him, and that realization was both thrilling and terrifying. Back at school, Sam found me in the courtyard, the daisies tucked into his backpack. "Thanks for the flowers," he said, his voice quiet but warm. "No one's ever done that for me before." I smiled, my heart racing. "Get used to it," I said, my voice light but sincere. As we walked to class, I caught Luke watching from across the quad, his expression unreadable. I turned away, focusing on Sam. The festival had marked a turning point, not just for him, but for me. I was choosing a new path where my heart and future could coexist, and I wasn't looking back. The August sun blazed over Westwood College, a sprawling campus in Northern Virginia, where I, Jennifer Jenny Carter, stood at the school gate, my suitcase heavy in my hand. My rebirth had carried me through my final year at Lincoln High, where I'd leveraged my past life's knowledge of exam questions to ace the SATs and secure a spot here alongside Samuel Sam Parker. My heart raced at the thought of him, our bond growing from a calculated alliance to something real, something I could no longer deny. But reborn and stubbornly persistent Luke Thompson had enrolled at a nearby college, his presence a shadow I couldn't fully escape. As I waited for Sam to arrive for first-year orientation, I clutched my phone, rereading a text from my parents in Singapore New Chapter Jenny, "Make it yours." Their support, steady across the miles, fueled my resolve to build a future free of fear. Westwood's campus buzzed with new students, their voices mingling with the hum of cicadas. Sam and I had chosen computer science, a nod to his future as a tech mogul. I'd seen glimpses of that destiny in high school, his app prototype, his sharp mind, but here he was, already making waves, joining a coding hackathon within days of arriving. I admired his drive, but his quiet kindness, the way he'd shielded me from Luke, had stolen my heart. Yet doubts lingered. Did he see me as more than a friend? I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the present as Sam appeared, his gray eyes bright under the morning sun. "Ready for this, Jenny?" he asked, his smile easy but guarded. I nodded, my heart fluttering. "Let's make it count." The first 2 weeks were a whirlwind of military training, a mandatory freshman program that turned the quad into a sea of camouflage and sweat. Sam and Luke, at their respective schools, became campus stars. Sam for his coding prowess, Luke for his charm and athleticism. Rumors swirled about me, the girl caught between them. My roommates, 3 chatty freshmen, were smitten with Luke, who'd won them over with his easy smiles and gifts of trendy keychains. At lunch in the cafeteria, they gushed, "Jenny Luke's perfect, tall, rich, hot. Sam's great, but he's like the backup plan." I glanced at Sam across the table, his fork pausing midair, his expression unreadable, but his eyes dimming with a familiar loneliness. My heart sank. I'd seen that look before when his classmates mocked his scholarship status. I couldn't let him think he was less than Luke, not when he meant so much to me. I stood, my voice clear. I said, "Luke's not in the running," my eyes locked on Sam's. "I'm chasing Sam. Always have been." The cafeteria fell silent, my roommate's jaws dropping. Sam's eyes widened, his lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. Before I could lose my nerve, I walked around the table, my heart pounding, and sat beside him. "I mean it," I whispered, my hand brushing his. "I like you, Sam. Please tell me how to win you over." For a moment, he was still, his gray eyes searching mine. Then he pulled me into a trembling hug, his arms tight around me. "Don't say you're not enough," he murmured, his voice hoarse. "I've always thought I wasn't good enough for you." My throat tightened, and I hugged him back, my face buried in his shoulder. "You're more than enough," I said, my voice muffled. The cafeteria erupted in whispers, but I didn't care. This was my truth, and I'd chosen it. That evening, as we walked across campus, Sam's hand found mine, his fingers warm and steady. We stopped in a quiet corner near the library, the stars bright above. He kissed me soft at first, then deeper, his breath warm against my lips. I melted into him, my heart racing until a shadow caught my eye. Luke stood across the quad, his green eyes fixed on us, unblinking. For a moment I froze, memories of his past life's control flooding back. But then he turned away, his shoulders slumped and disappeared into the night. I exhaled, relief washing over me. He'd seen us, and maybe finally he'd let go. Back in my dorm, I called my parents, their faces lighting up my screen. I told Sam I like him, I said, my cheeks flushed. "We're together now." Mom's smile was radiant. That's my brave girl. Does he make you happy? I nodded, my eyes stinging. Yeah, he does, Dad added. Make sure he keeps up with you, Jenny. You're a force. Their words settled over me, a reminder that I was building a life on my terms. As I hung up, I thought of Luke's retreating figure. His persistence had faded, but Sam's presence was my anchor, a promise of a future where love didn't come with strings. 3 years after graduating from Westwood College, Jennifer Jenny Carter sat on a sleek San Francisco apartment floor sorting through a box of Samuel Sam Parker's old books. The city skyline glittered through the window, a testament to the life we'd built since my rebirth reshaped my path. Sam, now a rising star in Silicon Valley, had just acquired a failing tech firm, the Lou Corporation, his name splashed across TechCrunch as a visionary. I'd seen the seeds of that success in high school, his app prototype, his relentless drive, but watching it unfold still filled me with awe. As a data analyst at a startup, Sam had mentored my career, was thriving, a far cry from the powerless girl I'd been in my past life. As I pulled out a worn copy of A Midsummer Night's Dream, a handwritten note slipped free, Sam's neat script quoting Helena, "Treat me like your dog, so long as I can follow you." My heart clenched a window into the quiet yearning he'd hidden all those years. I remembered our college days when Sam and I had grown inseparable. After my confession at Westwood, our relationship deepened, built on late-night study sessions and stolen kisses in the library. But Luke Thompson's shadow lingered briefly. A week after he saw us kiss, he sent a roommate to deliver a cake from my favorite bakery, a gesture from our past life when he'd used it to smooth over fights. I chased him down, tossing the box back. "Stop, Luke," I said, my voice firm. "I've moved on. You should too." His green eyes, once so commanding, were hollow. "It used to work," he muttered, staring at the smashed cake. "Not anymore." He turned away, and that was the last I saw of him. Months later, a classmate whispered that Luke had dropped out after a street racing accident abroad, left him paralyzed from the waist down. I paused, a flicker of pity passing through me, but I let it go. His choices were his own, and I'd chosen freedom. Sam's rise wasn't without challenges. In our sophomore year, I'd joined him at a hackathon, watching him code a prototype for a task management app that caught a professor's eye. That project became his first startup, a stepping stone to the empire he'd build. But his quiet intensity hid doubts revealed in moments like the night he'd confessed, "I'm scared I'll fail you, Jenny." I'd held his face, my voice steady. "You're already enough." His success wasn't just ambition, it was his way of proving he could protect me, a promise born from the day he'd shielded me from Luke. My parents, now retired in Virginia after years in Singapore, were my rock. I'd visited them last summer, their cozy house filled with laughter and old photos. "You've built something real," Mom said, squeezing my hand. "Sam's lucky to have you." Dad nodded, his eyes proud. "You're unstoppable, kiddo." Their faith had carried me through doubts, through moments when I feared my feelings for Sam were too tied to my old plan. But love had won out, rooted in trust and shared dreams. I'd even insured myself against medical emergencies, a practical step to ensure no one could ever exploit me again like Luke had with Emily's kidney transplant. Back in the apartment, Sam walked in, his tie loosened after a long day. "Found something?" he asked, seeing the book in my hands. I showed him the note, my voice soft. "You wrote this in high school. You never told me you felt like this." He sat beside me, his gray eyes softening. "I didn't think anyone would care," he said, his fingers tracing the paper. "Then you showed up with soup and flowers, and I started believing I could be more." I leaned against him, my heart full. "You always were." The TV flickered on, and a news segment replayed Sam's interview about the Lou acquisition. "Why take the risk?" the reporter asked. Sam's answer was simple: to build something lasting for the people I love. I smiled, knowing he meant me. Luke's tragedy, Emily's recovery, my parents' pride, all were threads in a tapestry I'd woven with my second chance. As Sam's arm wrapped around me, I knew I'd found my future, not in wealth or power, but in a love that let me be free.